And that might be about, either keeping your knees bent for a little while to let your lower back release. It might be about straightening your legs to let the front of the hips release a bit more. And they are in relationship, and that's what we've been looking at quite a lot in the last few sessions. They're in relationship through the psoas muscle, which goes from the inside of your thighs, goes deep into the hips, through the abdomen, and attaches then to the lowest 5 vertebrae of your back on the inside of your spine. And the top bit of the psoas muscle that attaches to your spine is at the same vertebrae where your diaphragm attaches as well. So breathing affects the position of your pelvis and your lower back via the psoas, as well as the movement of the diaphragm. So, as always, emphasizing those connections which may not be immediately obvious and which we might not be aware of all the time, yet they're there. And checking with how you would like to place your arms on the floor. So how are your shoulders today? You might like to spread your arms out a bit, or place your hands on your torso somewhere. And noticing your relationship with the floor. And the relationship with gravity. So we're always in relationship with gravity and the ground. Even if we're not on the ground, if we didn't have support that was connected to the ground, like a chair, then we would be falling down towards the ground. Coming back to this idea of the body, the breath, the ground, gravity, being like dance partners. Dancing to music that is kind of orchestrated by all the different parts of the body, responding to gravity. So feeling your breath, and maybe feeling subtle changes even in the back of your body in relationship to the floor as you breathe. Maybe you can feel parts of your spine moving in relationship to the floor as you breathe. What if you breathe out a bit more fully? That might help you to notice more of the things that are at other times hidden. Stronger out breath, deeper in breath. And this can also emphasize again the three-dimensional nature of the body and the breath. The breath doesn't just happen at the front of the body. It doesn't just move the lungs. And inviting you to place your hands kind of like either side of your lower belly. So your fingertips could be on the hip crest, the curve of the hip bone at the front, and the thumbs sort of along the sides of the belly. And this marks out the territory, as it were, of the psoas muscle. So it does start at the thighs, so you could also let your hands kind of slide down for a moment towards the thighs, feeling the structure of the front of the hips. Then some parts of the psoas come across the hip bone there and the hip crest, and some parts go into the pelvis towards the lower back. So this is the psoas territory. And the map is not the territory, so we don't really necessarily need to know what it looks like on the anatomy pictures. It's more about feeling it and noticing subtlety in the body as we move. So feeling your breath there just now in the belly, and also aware of the back of the pelvis and the position of your pelvis in relation to the lower back. And then if you currently have your legs straight, bending your knees, or vice versa. If they were already bent, then straighten them and notice what changes. So there's probably a change in the position of your pelvis. There might be a change in how you breathe, or how your breath moves in your body. And this is partly due to the change in the psoas muscle. With the knees bent, it kind of slackens off like a slack rope hanging between two attachments. It's not stretching, it's not contracting, it's slackening off. This releases the lower back more to the floor. And then when we straighten the legs, the psoas very slightly extends in most people. It begins to stretch, not massively because we're not in a back bend. It begins to stretch. And usually that increases the curve in the lumbar spine, in the lower back. And there might be a slight feeling of opening here. That depends on your habitual posture. If I've been sitting a lot, then I might feel a stretch here. It's morning right now, so I've been lying down a lot and in the night, so it feels fairly neutral just now. It might be different in the evening if I've been on a long car journey or something like that. So noticing that, just awareness of these differences. And then straightening your legs. And as always, you could do this one leg at a time. You know, if both legs straight isn't so comfortable for you. If you're doing one leg at a time, start with the right leg. Noticing, again, your relationship with the floor and encouraging you to keep your hands on the belly, on the hips, maybe move them every now and again to have a sense of what's going on there. And I'm going to invite you to let your right leg roll inwards and outwards at the hip. So the result is that your foot does roll inwards and you're rolling across your heel, but the action is happening at the hip. So it's your thigh bone that's rotating in the hip socket. And see if you can make that movement quite smooth on the inward roll and then gradually rolling back. And how smooth it feels or doesn't feel. Mine feels a little bit catchy. You know, it's like catching at certain points. And what the angles are. So when you relax, what angle is your foot in relation to the floor? And when you roll in, which is where the effort is, how far can you go? And then how far up in your torso can you feel this? So can you feel something changing in your belly when you roll in and out? It's okay if you don't, but you might notice something happening in your belly or your rib cage, even towards the middle of your back or your upper back, because everything is connected. And then letting the right leg relax. Notice if there's any sense of difference between how it was and how it is now, or between right and left side. And then rolling the left leg. So if you're needing to bend your right knee, please do, and straighten the left leg, or you can keep both legs straight. And then doing this internal rotation, this rolling motion on the left leg. And it might feel a little different. It might be smoother or less smooth. And then relaxing again. Straightening both legs for a moment and seeing if anything's changed in your relationship with the floor. And then on an out breath, sliding the heels in, back to kind of standing feet, and noticing if anything's changed in that position compared to before. And then letting your head roll to one side and back. Doesn't matter which side, just go to one side and back. So you might be going to the left and back to center. And only going as far as feels easy. So if it starts to feel like a stretch, then come back from that point. And then coming back after the next, let's do one more, and then coming back to the center. Noticing how the head and neck feel. It might feel like you're still slightly turned to that side. And then go to the other side, a small movement. Back to the center. About 4 times or so. And then back to center. Oh, having a little rest, feeling the back of your head on the floor. And you might like to straighten your legs. You might like to let your hands flop on the floor, taking a rest, noticing how you are. And this is really just a small practice, a short practice to tune into your body, to have a little rest, maybe at the start of a yoga practice or at the end of the day or a long drive or whatever you've been doing, to let some of these postural patterns go.